Well, very much appreciated. So I'm going to turn my camera off now, but I'll stay allowing people in as they arrive if a few people are slightly late. But yeah, over to you, Graham, and a huge thank you.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Sean. And yeah, just to reiterate, thank you so much everyone for being here tonight. It's really really lovely to see so many of you here. So yeah, my name's Graham Waiton, and I'm from the University of Bath. And this evening we are going to be thinking about how you go about planning and researching your personal statement. As we said right at the start, so probably before a number of you came in, I'm really really happy to try and take questions at any point. So please use the chat box if you do have anything you'd like to ask. And then we should also have a reasonable chunk of time at the end of the session for questions. So happy to take anything then as well. So, what are we going to be thinking about this evening? Well, firstly, we're going to recap what the personal statement is. I suspect that a large number of you are already pretty happy that you know what the personal statement is, but for anyone who's not quite sure at this stage, we'll just cover that again. We'll also think about exactly what universities will want to see from that personal statement. We'll then move on to think about planning and writing, the kind of the initial stages of planning and writing of that personal statement, and then finally, just some tips to help you stand out to competitive universities. So for those really competitive courses and those universities that have far more applicants than they do have places, I've got some tips that'll hopefully help you to stand out. So, first things first, as I'm sure many of you already know, you are going to be applying it to university through UCAS. So, UCAS is an online application, and that application, you only do one application, but that can be used to apply to up to 5 university or course choices. There are various different sections of the UCAS application. So, section one is your personal details, and this includes such things as your name, your date of birth, and your address. Section two is all about your education history. So, here you'll tell us about any schools that you've attended since year seven, as well as qualifications that you've taken, so GCSEs, for example, and details of those qualifications that you are going to be taking at the end of year 13. Your school or college is going to include some predicted grades in this section, which we will use as part of the kind of admissions process. Section three is all about any work experience that you have. So here you can tell us about any full-time, part-time, voluntary work or work experience that you've done. You can give us details of up to five jobs in that section. And then finally, section five is for the reference, and that is going to be written for you by somebody at school or college. Most commonly, one person kind of oversees that process, maybe kind of a head of sixth form or your tutor or someone like a head of careers. Um, and each of your subject teachers will feed into that process to make sure they tell us about what you like in each of your lessons. And then finally, the remaining section is the personal statement. And this personal statement is where you talk about yourself in your own words. The personal statement is a maximum of 4,000 characters. That does include spaces or 47 lines. So it's roughly kind of two-thirds, three-quarters of a page of A4. Um, Somewhere in the region of maybe kind of 450 to 550 words, depending on how wordy you are. Um, while the rest of the information on your UCAS application is objective information, so you have been to a particular school, you have got a certain set of GCSE results, you have been predicted a certain set of grades in your post 16 qualifications. The personal statement is all subjective, so it's where you tell us how you think about things, how you feel, and also where you can demonstrate that you have the skills, experience, and qualities that will make you suitable for the course for which you are applying. So, the personal statement is an absolutely crucial part of your application. You may very, very occasionally see somebody coming out in the media and saying, oh, personal statements don't matter at all. No one ever reads a personal statement. And it's a really, really dangerous message to be putting out there because I'm sure There may be a certain course at a certain university that doesn't look at the personal statement, but for the vast majority of courses at the vast majority of universities, it is an absolutely crucial part of the process. One of the reasons for this is that the majority of courses at university don't interview the majority of applicants. So if you're applying to Oxbridge, then hopefully you'll get an interview. If you're applying to medicine or law or dentistry or veterinary science or veterinary medicine, then you're likely to be interviewed for those courses. But for the vast majority of other courses, you won't receive an interview, and that means that the only opportunity that you get to speak directly to the person making admissions decisions is via your personal statement. In other words, it's your only opportunity for most courses to show us that you are more than just a collection of exam results. So it is really, really, really crucial. It's also quite useful. Well, it's also essential again once your exam results come out. We will make you an offer, and if you hit those grades, that's brilliant. You will have you'll be able to gain the place at the university automatically. But if you narrowly miss out on the results that we've asked for, a good personal statement may actually mean that you're still offered a place on the course, even though you've achieved slightly lower grades than we've asked for. So it's really, really crucial at all parts of the process. And as the slide says, if you are applying for a course that does interview, so for somewhere like Oxbridge, or for a course like medicine, social work, or pharmacy, then the personal statement might actually be used as the initial stage of that interview to help you kind of settle into it. So, all in all, it's really, 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 really important. So, having said it's important, what does a personal statement actually need to include? Well, it really just needs to tell us three things. So, those things are firstly, why you are right for the course, secondly, how your current study is relevant, and thirdly, how your personal experiences support your application. So, all those extra things that you've done in your life, be they work experience, be they additional reading, be they something you've done maybe like a field trip within school or college. Those can be those can you can talk about those in your personal statement and how they have helped kind of stoke your interest in the subject and how they kind of have given you the skills that you'll need to succeed. Different universities recommend making different kind of different proportions of your personal statement focused on kind of the academic side of yourself. At Bath, we suggest that you make it roughly kind of 80 to 85% focused on the subject you're applying for. This does vary at other universities, though, so make sure that you check with the universities you're applying for. If you think you're applying to something to Oxford or Cambridge, then the likelihood is you want to make your personal statement as close to 100% focused on the academic side of things as possible, because they really want to see that you're just like a massive brain. Whereas other universities may ask for maybe 60, 70, 75, 80% of that personal statement to be focused on the subject. So do check with each university you're thinking of applying for. But as a rough guide for reasonably competitive universities like the University of Bath, we're looking for maybe 80 to 85% of it to be focused on the subject. And then the remainder can be focused on you, the person, and all those other brilliant things that you do with your own time. So things like maybe hobbies and interests, and talking about things like part-time jobs as well can go into that remaining section. So your first step before putting pen to paper should be to research. Before you start writing, it's really important to know what the course involves and what the universities are looking for. And you also need to be sure that you can demonstrate that you have the skills, experience, knowledge, and qualities that each university is looking for. Your personal statement also needs to demonstrate your understanding of the subject and its requirements, and it also needs to demonstrate that you have everything that the university is looking for. So at this stage, I'd absolutely not suggest you start putting pen to paper and trying to write your personal statement. I would suggest the most crucial thing that you can do at this stage is some research. Look around kind of university websites, look at prospectuses, and see exactly what is involved in that course and exactly what universities are looking for. This would be probably my top tip for something to be doing over the next few weeks. Before we go any further, I've got a short activity for you, and hopefully this is going to give you a sense of the kind of things that universities look for, as well as how to demonstrate those things. So the paragraph we've got on the screen at the moment is from an application for computer science, and what I'd really like you to do is try and identify all of the different ways that this student has demonstrated their enthusiasm for their subject. Hopefully this is going to work, but if you can pop anything that you think is an indication of uh, kind of sorry, if you can pop into the chat box any way that the student has identified that they really kind of are enthusiastic and passionate about this subject, that'd be brilliant. So I'll just give you a minute or two to do that. This is excellent. It looks as though the Q&A is working. The chat box is working, so Sean's already popped some information in there.
Yeah, I think as you said, there's no right or wrong answer here, is there, Graham? So yeah, have a go, see what you think.
So I've got a couple of examples of personal statements that I'm going to show you tonight, and these are actual personal statements that people have used to get into the University of Bath. So you can see the kind of language they're using, the kind of examples they are giving. I'll just give you a moment or two longer to think about that, and then we'll go on to look at some of the ways that they've kind of demonstrated their enthusiasm.
Well done, guys. A couple of Seren learners putting some
It's brilliant, yeah.
suggestions. Yeah,
Thank you
well
so
done. Keep
much.
keep them coming. Keep them coming.
So they bought the Raspberry Pi. That has shown initiative. Thank you for that suggestion. The language they've used is quite evocative. So they're kind of getting across their passion by their language. So they're using kind of words like love and enjoy and captivating. They've done programming. They've taken it upon themselves to learn more about their subject. They've shown passion for maths and computing with the programming, the kind of algebra thing that they mentioned. They're using technical terms correctly. These are all really, really fantastic suggestions. Thank you, everybody. So looking at what I've identified as particularly good from this paragraph, I think the language they use is really, really it really shows us that they're passionate. They sound really interested in the subject. So they use words like love, particularly enjoy, and captivating, and they're really, really good words to use to kind of show their enthusiasm. And then the other thing that many of you have identified that is really good about this one is that they've done some stuff in their own time, so kind of super curricular activity. So they bought a Raspberry Pi, and you guys probably know a lot more about Raspberry Pis than I do, but I think it's just a kind of a little computer thing that you can kind of code, and they've used that to to kind of create kind of a computer program that does a kind of an algebra quiz. So yeah, you had some really, really good suggestions there. So thank you very much. So it just shows that they're not simply um, passionate about this subject within the confines of school and college. They're actually kind of going out and living this subject in their own time, and that's one of the most important things to do in this personal statement, is to give us examples of how you have kind of explored the subject further outside school and college. So that is brilliant. So let's have another go at this. So this is a different personal statement. This one is for economics. So this time we are going to be thinking about the ways in which the student has demonstrated that they have a knowledge of the requirements of their chosen subject. So could you pop into that chat again and tell me how the student has shown that they know what skills and knowledge the course requires?
like hearing. So
Yeah, keep them coming, guys. Have a reread of it and pick up some of the key words that, as Graham has mentioned. Be good to get some more feedback on this one.
I have high hopes for this one. You did brilliantly on the last one. So, yeah, as Sean said, please keep them coming. Um, so yeah, Molly has suggested that they have used words like they've used kind of language like taught me, solid comprehension, expanded my awareness. Um, we've got somebody else talking about kind of modules that have been taken. They've given examples of factors they've learned. Yeah, brilliant. They're talking about data, statistics, lots of technical subject-based terms and vocabulary. Again, these are all absolutely brilliant. So thank you so much, everyone. So again, highlighted here, we've got all of the things that you've just identified. So they've mentioned, for example, they've specifically mentioned several skills that they have and knowledge that they've gained, and most importantly, I guess they've given examples to show how they've demonstrated, how they've sorry, got someone else's teeth in today, how they've developed those skills and gained that knowledge. So some of the things that they've said that they've done include they have learned from mathematics how to solve complex problems. Stats has taught them how to handle and evaluate data. By doing economics, they've kind of gained awareness of how businesses and individuals base their decisions on factors such as risk and economic climate. And these are all brilliant things that you want to be able to do in order to succeed on a maths course. Those are amazing. Thank you so much, everyone, for your contributions there. So, how did those two students know which skills and which knowledge to talk about in their personal statements? Well, basically, they did their research. So, information on what universities are looking for and what the course involves can usually be found on university websites, on the course description and information pages, but also can be found on in university prospectuses. I'm sure many of you will be going to university open days in the coming months, and you can definitely use those opportunities to ask university staff exactly what they're looking for in an application. Um, or if people come into your school or college to speak to you, so people like me who do outreach from kind of universities around the country, if they come into your school or college to speak to you, take that opportunity to ask them about specifically what is involved with their courses and what you kind of what they're looking for in personal statements, because these sorts of information will give you some really big clues about what to focus your personal statement on. What you focus your personal statement on really does depend on the course that you're applying for. The best personal statements really hone in on the key skills, the key knowledge, and the key experiences which are relevant to that course. And what you should be aiming to do within your own personal statement is make sure that you are kind of identifying the skills, the knowledge, the experiences that you have that are really, really relevant to your course. Um, it's absolutely brilliant that you're all thinking about this at this stage. A lot of learners actually won't start thinking about the UCAS application until maybe the end of the summer term, or in some cases, possibly into September. So the fact that you're starting now really does give you a massive head start on a lot of people around the UK. So you should aim to do your research as early as possible, so that if you identify that you do have gaps in your skills or in your knowledge, then you can use the next kind of 6 months that you have left in year 12, and also kind of the summer holiday that follows it, to engage with activities to help you fill these gaps and make sure that you've got lots of information to include in your personal statement. This is someone who I can guarantee is not thinking about a personal statement, but we can pretend she is. So a really good place to start is to brainstorm the qualities that make a good student of any subject. There are certain qualities that are desirable in a student for any subject, whether that subject is art or medicine, whether it's engineering or English. Can anyone think of some of the qualities that make for a good student? If so, can you pop those into the chat box again, please? I've got some brilliant examples, some brilliant suggestions coming through again. We've got independent thinker, hardworking and resilient, hardworking, organised and punctual, hardworking, able to organise their time well, the ability to be self-critical. They need to be hardworking, curious and passionate, motivated to learn more. They need a great work ethic. They need to be determined. They need leadership and communication skills. They need to be diligent. They need to be curious about the subject, motivated, curiosity. These are all outstanding suggestions again. Dedicated. Yeah, these are absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much, everyone. So, just four of the examples that we have given include being inquisitive, hardworking, passionate, and dedicated. But all of the things that you have suggested, things like being motivated, being curious, being dedicated, being diligent, having good communication skills are all equally important. That is absolutely brilliant. Thank you. There will also be a set of skills that are specific to the subject you are applying for. These will vary from subject to subject, but in this example, we're going to think about the example of history. Would anyone like to tell me some of the skills it's useful for a history student to be able to demonstrate? And again, pop those in the chat if you can think of any. So research skills, yeah, absolutely. Written communication skills, definitely. It's an essay-based subject, so being able to communicate in a written form is really important. Critical thinking is definitely important. Ability to analyze text, time management, these are all fabulous again. Being able to evaluate sources, that's another really good one. Fantastic. Again, those were absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much, everyone. So, again, we've identified four here. They need to be able to evaluate sources, they need to be good at writing essays, they need to be a critical thinker, and they need to be an independent researcher. But all of the suggestions that you've given there are equally good. We can use any of those as examples. So, yeah, thank you very, very much for those. When it comes to the quality, skills, and knowledge that you are going to need for your particular course, you perhaps need to be a little bit more proactive rather than just simply doing a brainstorm. To help you, you ideally need to look at individual course content to work out exactly what universities are looking for and what the course involved. One thing to be really, really conscious of is that courses with the same title can have a different focus or different expectations. So please do make sure that you look at each and every course that you're considering in full detail, even if it on the face of it looks exactly the same subject or has the same title, it could be radically different. So again, I guess let's take the example of history. Um, you might be a passionate historian and be really interested in, oh, I don't know, kind of ancient Greek civilization. You're not going to find that there's the same content of kind of ancient Greekery in each and every course. So some courses might be much more focused on kind of recent history or perhaps medieval history. So if you were to kind of apply to those courses but have your personal statement just full of information about the ancient Greeks, then it's unlikely that you would make such a kind of convincing argument to get a place on that course because actually you wouldn't have kind of covered what's in that subject. So it's really, really important when you are applying to courses to make sure that you do as much research as you possibly can, so you know exactly what it is you're applying for. Um, I feel compelled just to use this picture again, and I'd really heartily recommend that you spend some time over the next few weeks, next couple of months maybe, trying to answer these two questions. If you're able to identify the qualities that you're going to need to succeed on a course, then you'll be able to spend the next few months making sure that you have all of the evidence that you need to illustrate that within your personal statement. So, just to recap, I'd recommend your action plan for the next few weeks and months should start firstly with research. So, make sure that you fully understand what's involved with all of the courses that you are considering applying for. Once you know this, think about what makes a good student for that subject and what makes a good student in general. And then finally, I'd really like it if you were able to find evidence that you possess the skills and qualities that the university requires. There are various ways that you can show that you have everything we're looking for. And one of the most effective ways you can do that, and also, I guess, one of the most straightforward, is by wider reading. This will demonstrate that you have a commitment to the subject outside of school or college and a passion for the subject, and can be done really easily at a local library or online. And sources that you could read include blogs, textbooks, news articles, magazines, journals. You could read research papers. You could look at online resources such as oh gosh, what's it called? PubMed, I think it's called, which is kind of a source of kind of a medically based journal. So there are loads of things that you can potentially you can look at to do this wider reading. In addition to wider reading, there are a whole host of supercurricular activities you can do to enhance your application. These include such things as work experience. If you're perhaps doing a course that is thinking about studying a university course that's quite vocational, so quite focused on a particular job, it might be a really good idea to get some work experience in that area, particularly if it's something super competitive like medicine or dentistry or veterinary science or veterinary medicine. Having that kind of work experience would really, really enrich your application. You could also do something along the lines of further study. Some of you may already have come across MOOCs. If you haven't come across MOOCs, MOOC stands for Massive Open Online Courses. Those of you who use Unifrog will find a lot of MOOCs. There are a lot of MOOCs you can access through there. They are basically distance learning courses that are offered by universities all over the world. They might take you 2 or 3 hours a week for maybe 6 to 8 weeks, but they're a really, really fabulous way that you can kind of indicate you can kind of indicate your kind of your passion for the subject, your commitment to the subject. They're generally free to do. And certainly it's something that's well worth exploring. Similarly, you might decide to focus part of your Welsh Baccalaureate on a particular aspect of the course you're applying for at university. And again, that's another really, really good way to kind of demonstrate how committed you are to this subject. Other things you could do include maybe watching documentaries. You might attend lectures by university academics. These could be physical, in person. So if you are somewhere like Cardiff, for example, you might find that Cardiff University has kind of a public lecture series that anybody can go along to, where you can actually listen to experts in their field kind of talking about their subject. Those are worth keeping an eye open for. Um, an alternative, though, could be to do it virtually. You will find streamed lectures on university websites, on sites like YouTube as well. It's well worth kind of looking at a couple of those just to give you a little bit more, depth to the knowledge that you're going to be talking about in your personal statement. Other things you can do include watching TED Talks and listening to podcasts, listening to kind of radio programs. The more of these things you do, the better your application is going to be. Having a handful of these activities on your personal statement was really, really going to set you apart from the vast majority of other applicants. You don't necessarily need to do 10 or 20 different things. You only really need to do maybe three, 4 or 5 of these things, but having being able to kind of talk about these things that you've done and your commitment to the subject as a whole, um, will really, really help to set you apart um, from the field. The final thing we're going to talk about today is how you talk about these examples. We will be doing another session later on in the academic year where we talk more in depth about how to go about kind of putting pen to paper and composing your paragraphs. But I'm just going to kind of touch on this because I think it's one of the most important things, one of the most important elements of writing a personal statement. My top two tips for setting yourself apart from a super competitive field of applicants are firstly to do some supercurricular activities, so the kind of things we've looked at on the last couple of slides. But my second tip is to use something called the ABC rule, and this relates to how you talk about these activities. It's generally not enough just to say that you've done something and move on. Ideally, you need to be telling us what you've learned from that experience and how it relates to the course you are studying from. So the ABC rule, uh, we have A, which stands for activity. So this is something that you have done. So the example we've used here is one of those MOOCs I mentioned on the last slide. Um, B is for benefit. So this is where you tell us what you learned about what you learned from doing that activity. So that activity could be a MOOC, it could be additional reading, it could be work experience, it could be a field trip you've been on. It's much more effective if you tell us actually what you've learned from that rather than just giving us a list of bullet points of things that you've done. And then finally, C is for course. So, how does the activity, how does the benefit that you've derived relate to the course? So, in this example, the activity is a MOOC on bioprinting. The benefit they've derived from that is that they've learned about 3D printing of body parts and organs. And how that relates to the course is, well, it's making them excited about studying a biomedical engineering degree, but it's also given them an insight into the 3D printing facilities, and it's shown them how it's possible to design body parts and organs. Hopefully, you can see here how the final paragraph would make for a much more convincing personal statement point. Than simply just telling us that that they've done a MOOC. It's certainly far more convincing than just telling us that they've done a MOOC would be. So my two absolutely golden rules for writing a personal statement. Firstly, it's do some additional stuff, whether that is wider reading or whether that is anything else like work experience, further study, podcasts, lectures, TED Talks, YouTube videos, documentaries. And then, secondly, use the ABC rule when you're talking about that. So, for every single thing that you tell us, don't just tell us that you've done it, tell us about the benefit you derived from that, and if possible, relate that back to the course. That's actually, I've whistled through that a bit more quickly than I thought I would. That's actually more or less the end of today's session. So I'd just like to finish by recapping what I consider to be the most important points from the session. So firstly, please start thinking about your application as soon as you possibly can. You do have several months before you'll need to submit your UCAS application, but you'll find that the more you do at this stage, the easier you'll find the process. Make sure you fully research the requirements for your chosen universities and courses. If there's something essential for the application that you don't feel you currently have, now is the time to think about how you're going to address that. It'll be much easier for you to arrange work experience, to start a MOOC, listen to a podcast over the next few months than it will be to try and squeeze it in to the first few months of year 13 when you are going to be having loads of homework and you have revision to do and kind of all the other things that you have going on in your life at that point. In order to help yourself stand out from the crowd for competitive universities, it's really, really important to do additional activities. So these are things like additional qualifications, wider reading, TED Talks, and anything that you do along these lines will really, really ensure that you stand out. And then finally, when you talk about these activities, it's really, really important to use the ABC rule. So give us the activity, the benefit, and the course for each of those points you make, and you will be able to present each of those points in a really convincing argument for why we should offer you a place as opposed to somebody else. So those are my top tips. We will be looking at in a later session more to do with structuring paragraphs and how to kind of apply some examples of how we some more examples of using that ABC rule and more examples of using additional activities, supercurricular activities within your application. But for the time being, hopefully this has given you something to be getting on with over the next few weeks. And that is the end. That is an inexplicable picture of a duck. Thank you so much for contributing so much.
Yeah,
Um,
Graham, would you mind, just before everybody leaves, can I just say a huge thank you to you for that insight, and thank you to all our learners here this evening. One thing I just wanted to quickly share was just to add to your suggestion for research, is around the UCAS website and being able to look at courses, because what is really important, and I hope you can all see this, guys, there is the UCAS website where you can search courses and find out exactly what the entry requirement is for a particular course now, so that at least you know what you're aiming for in terms of what qualifications you need to get into a particular university. So for example, I've put here in a search for history. And if you click on history on the UCAS website, which you can see here, it gives you a list of all the universities in the UK that offer history as a degree. And bearing in mind, if you put in history, you look at all the choices that you get. You don't have to do a single standalone degree. You can do a mixture, and you can see a list there: history and archaeology, history and philosophy, etc. But let's just keep it simple. If we click on history, for example, and you scroll down at the different universities that offer a subject, then you can see, if you click on the university, they will tell you what A levels you need, what grade you need to get in. Now, I wouldn't want to pick any other university other than the University of Bath.
I feel as though we've done a really bad job encouraging people to do history. We don't do it
Yeah.
at Bath, so please don't all do
Yeah, I
history.
do. No. So I've chosen mathematics, as a degree. So if you do as I've said there, if you go to the UCAS search thing, you go down to the University of Bath, for example, if that is a university that you're considering applying to, you can click on courses, put in the name of the subject, and it'll bring up the entry requirements. So it's crystal clear from the outset, from now, what you need to do to demonstrate your suitability for the program, so that you're guaranteed to get an offer, which is what we're all aiming for. When you put in your application, your teacher does their reference, and you've got predicted grades. The University of Bath or Exeter or Oxford or Newcastle or Manchester or St Andrews or wherever you want to apply to, bearing in mind, as Graham said, you've got 5 choices. They're coming back straight away, these universities, and saying, we want you. So to put your best foot forward to be ahead of the competition, you need to know what the entry requirements are. So this makes it crystal clear, what your personal statement should demonstrate, and as Graham has emphasized this evening, it is about demonstrating your enthusiasm for studying mathematics, if that's a subject that you want to do. It asks you, if you scroll down, it tells you what A-level grades is a typical offer. So in other words, if you want to do maths at the University of Bath, you're going to have to get at least A star and 2 A's.
We don't scare them
In,
off,
yeah,
please.
yeah. Yeah, it says there A star, double A in 3 A levels, including A star A or A in maths and further maths. Now, that's a classic example of if you're not doing further maths and you're considering studying maths at university, this is a conversation to have with teachers and your Seren leaders back in school or college, you know, as soon as possible, really. So I hope that helps, guys. I hope you don't mind, Graham. I just wanted to add that on.
That's really helpful.
Because
Thank you, Sean.
yeah, because I think, you know, it is about being really prepared this year. So if you know about that and everything that Graham has said, then from tomorrow morning onwards, you could be getting on with doing stuff. So loads of hints and tips there. So thank you so much, Graham. And in terms of questions, there was one question miles back,
It's
which
right up
was
the top, isn't
about
it? Let's have a look.
which I think I put a thumbs up to. And it was a question about there we go, from Cassia. Does work experience include volunteering roles? For example, volunteering with a charity or a student ambassador role? And I did put a thumbs up because I assume you're going to say yes, Graham.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, yeah. Any kind of work experience is really, really valuable. Quite often with the personal statement, it doesn't really matter what you've done. It's more about kind of what you've developed from doing that. So I wouldn't just say, oh, I've also done a bit of volunteering. I've been a student ambassador. I'd actually take the time to kind of analyze whether any of the skills you've gained from that will be useful for university. So if you've got perhaps a part-time job, then that is going to have an impact on your time management skills, because you'll have to kind of balance that with all of your school or college commitments and everything else you've got going on in your lives. If you are doing something like maybe being a student ambassador, then you know, some of the skills you'll develop from that include things like communication skills and you know, it might be a position of responsibility, and so you'll have developed skills via that as well. But yeah, anything that you've done, you can talk about in your personal statement, but please don't just say I've done this and move on. Actually make it earn its keep in there by talking about what actually you've kind of gained from doing that activity.
Yeah, really good advice. Yeah, definitely. Okay, I think that was all the questions. I'm just putting that UCAS link in the thing for you. Yeah, thank you so much. I don't know if anybody else has got any more questions or I've missed any. Please do shout if
I feel I've got off
I've
quite
missed.
lightly here. Quite lightly. Thank you.
Yeah, Graham, you kindly mentioned there about doing a follow-up session on structure for the personal statement. We'll take you up on that offer if that's okay, and I'll be back
Absolutely,
in
yes.
touch.
Yeah, brilliant.
Just whilst I've got all Seren learners online, don't forget we've got a Q&A session with students at the University of Oxford next week. It's let me have a look at my diary. It's Thursday, the 26th of January at 5:30 till 6:30. Irrespective of which university you are considering applying to, is going to be a really useful session because these are current students who were sitting in the seats in college and university, in schools and universities where you are now, who are in their first or second year of being a university student, and they're going to be so open and transparent. They're going to talk about how did they get from school or college into university, what were the pitfalls, what were the benefits. So please do come along to that. I'll send reminders out to your schools and colleges nearer the time, but please do put that date in your diary. It is an online session again. So it's Thursday, 26, 5:30 till 6:30, you know, and you can ask any question you like, anything about money, finances, accommodation, the courses, you know, how you did this, how you did that, whatever. So it's a free-for-all Q&A, really.
It's
So
well worth thinking about some questions beforehand
yeah,
that you want
definitely.
to ask. But yeah, really valuable session.
Yeah,
That's a really good opportunity to get anything you want to know answered.
brilliant. Thank you. Okay, again, thank you. Huge thank you. I'm going to stop the recording now and I'll make sure that I